Hello gamers, my name is Spark, and today I'm going to show you an awesome one-of-a-kind tool that you can use at your D&D or other TTRPG table. In this video I'm going to show you a Wild Magic Surge generator, which is obviously very specific to D&D. If you're running any sort of game or a table where you want to be able to randomly generate from a large list of items, you can just tweak this a little bit and it should work for any TTRPG. For starters, I'm going to show you the basics of how this tool works and how you can use it at your table. And then I'm going to show you what's happening behind the scenes to make the generator work and how you can customize it to better fit your campaign. Given that this is a Wild Magic Surge table, of course this references D&D 5e if you're playing a sorcerer and you're doing wild magic surges and that kind of thing. But this can also apply anytime you want to have a random magical effects, whether they come through potions or traveling through portals or making low rolls on teleportation checks, or any time that you just want to introduce a little bit of magical chaos into the setting. As with all of my generators, it's broken down into 4 sections. We have the generate button that turns it all on, we have the settings, we have the results, and then you have the storage area where you can save previously generated results. So for starters, let's look at the settings. You have positive results or positive Wild Magic Surges, you have negative Wild Magic Surges, and then you have neutrals. This is pretty intuitive. Positive surges are good for whoever the recipient is, negative surges are bad, and neutral surges could go either way or a little bit of both. We will look at plenty of examples of these. We also have the intensity setting where you can decide, do you want mild, moderate, or extreme surges? There are some pretty extreme surges in this list. In fact, if I can show you just really quick how many surges we have in this table, we have a total of 645. The internet has no shortage of Wild Magic Surge tables. I have seen several on the internet that are 1,000 surges long, right? Roll a 1d 1,000. The list that my wife and I curated here is very particular to our style. We tried to avoid overly silly surges. We tried to avoid surges that break the fourth wall, right? Meta surges that talk about you as the player. And we had very minimal surges that can permanently inflict penalties or handicaps on the players because most players are not interested in being handicapped. But of course, the beautiful thing about all of my generators is that you can customize them. So I'll talk more about customization in the second half of this video. But there are currently 645 surges in this table, and they are all sorted into mild, moderate, and extreme intensity. They are also all sorted into whether they target the self, like whoever is the sorcerer casting the spell or whoever is drinking the mysterious potion, whether they target an AoE, whether this affects an area around the center of the surge, or any combination of the above or something different. The reason this might be helpful is if you're wanting to do a potion type surge where we have a magical potion that a crazy wizard created and we want to just see what it'll do, but it doesn't make sense for a potion to have an AoE effect and you only want it to affect the person who drank it, then it would make sense for you to turn off the AoE and others. We only get surges that affect the self of the person who is the target. I'll talk about these in the customization part of this video. And then you have quantity. How many surges do you want to generate? Anywhere between 1 and 5 or random. If you select random, it'll generate a random amount between 1 and 5. And so that's it. That's it for the settings. It's pretty intuitive. So let's go ahead and generate some mild results here. We'll get to the moderate and extremes in a second. Just want to show you how this is formatted. Having clicked generate, you'll see we've generated 5 because that's how many I said I wanted. And 3 of them were neutral and 2 of them were negative. That is entirely random. It could have been all 5 positive, it could have been all 5 negative. It tells you the intensity, it tells you the target, and then it tells you if there is a custom filter involved. So these all say deactivated because we have no custom filter in place. Again, I'll talk more about that in the second half of this video. Let's take a look at some of these surges that have come up. Neutral. The caster becomes the center of a 30-foot radial zone of truth spell. Now again, that's a spell from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and so if you're not playing D&D 5e and you want to use this, you will need to go through the Wild Magic Surges and filter them out for however you want them to apply in your game. But this is neutral, right? Because it could be a good thing or a bad thing. Anytime the caster cracks a joke or attempts to be funny in the next 2d10 days, everyone within 30 feet of the caster can hear disembodied laughter as though from an invisible audience. And then some of these surges will have a little parenthetical that's just addressing to the DM to help the DM give an idea of how they might want to play this. So here's one that says, DM's discretion. Perhaps the caster and company have become the intrigue of a group of curious fae, and so that's where the disembodied laughter is coming from. Maybe there are some fae who are watching and they're being entertained. Maybe there are some ghosts. Fill in the blank for the story of it. Or it's a wild magic surge and there is no story. Who cares? Number 3, your skin turns a vibrant shade of blue. A remove curse spell can end this effect. Some of these surges tell you how to end the effect, if it's a lasting effect, like this one where your skin turns blue. Some of them say how you can end it, some of them don't. That's DM's discretion. As with all things that happen at a given table, it's the GM who decides what and how and when and where. If you get a surge that seems to have a permanent change and it doesn't say how to end it, then it's GM's discretion. Do you want it to be permanent? When my wife and I use the surge table, often if it does not say that it ends in a certain period of time, then it is assumed to be permanent. And then the GM can decide what level of spell, like a remove curse spell or a lesser restoration or a potion or something, is needed to reverse those effects. Here's a couple examples of negative. Unseen birds flutter and chirp in your vicinity for 1 hour, during which time you automatically fail any sound-related stealth checks. So everyone hears these birds. That would be a negative thing, most likely. Number 5, the caster leaves multicolored footsteps behind them for 1d6 hours, making them extremely easy to track. So these are just 5 examples. Let's take a look at some positives. The caster gains immunity to thunder damage for the next 1d12 hours, the ability to speak one language of your choice until sunrise. The next beast to see the caster will attempt to become its loyal companion. For the next minute, you have advantage on the next roll you make, where you don't already have advantage, and one random gem worth 100 GP appears near you. So those are just some examples of mild, positive wild magic surges. And that's really it. That is the whole function of the wild magic surge generator. If you'd like to have a taste of what some of the moderate wild magic surges are, I've generated 5 of them here, and you can pause the video and take a look at these. And if you would like to get an idea of some extreme, so there's 5 extremes, so you can pause my video and read these if you'd like to. So having looked at those, obviously there's no way that I can show you all 645 that I do have over here. Upon downloading the generator, of course, you would just want to probably skim through it and figure out any of them that you want to keep. But before getting into any more of that, let me scroll down. Of course, you've got the storage area. Every one of my generators has a storage area, and this is just a place where you can store surges that you've rolled previously. Like some of these surges, as we were just saying, have a permanent effect, and so it's probably important that you have somewhere where you can write down what the surge is in its original text if there's ever any questions on how to adjudicate what a player can or can't do or what's happening to a player or anything like that. And so over here, there's the plus button that expands this storage area. Not sure why that looks different, but it'll fix itself as soon as you copy and paste probably. So the idea here is if you expand this, right, and let's say that it's this first one, is the one that's happening. So you would just copy that, and then you would come down here and you'd right click paste special values only. And then that just pastes it in there. And now you have it. And now you have it saved there and it's not going anywhere. But the idea here for doing this is these cells up here are what are called dynamic cells. And anytime you do anything, like I'm just pressing the delete key, all of these cells recycle, which means if this is your list that you've generated and the first surge is what's happening to your player, and then you come through and you accidentally tap something, well, now that surge is gone and you're never going to get it back. And so if you didn't write it down or have it saved somewhere, then it's gone and you've lost it. So the idea here is that you paste it down here, and notice that no matter how much I click delete, nothing's changing. It is changing up there, which is why the screen is readjusting, because we have some large and some small. These are adjusting, but this did not. And that's the whole point of the storage system. So this is where you can just paste them, and it does keep track of how many openings you have. I've given you 4 stacks of 5, and so you'll notice this is saying stack 1 only has 4 openings, but as soon as you just come in here and press delete, then it goes back to saying you have 5 openings. So you would come in and you would make whatever notes you want to. In the notes section, you can collapse that, and all of that information stays in there. In fact, I'll just prove it to you really quick. Paste special values only, right? Roll a d10, your age changes, minimize that. You've got the notes telling you what's in there, maximize it, it's still there, your age changes. And that's it for the basic functionality of the Wild Magic Surge table. Pretty simple. This isn't my only generator, by the way. I have dozens. This table that you see on screen shows all the generators that I've created and which of them at the time of publishing this video have video tutorials like this one, but here soon all of them will have video tutorials. All my random generators are available for purchase on buymeacoffee.com for just a couple bucks. Links are in the description. If you're enjoying this video, now would be a great time to share it with other gamers. please hit the like button and subscribe. It'd really help me out. It's customization that sets my random generators apart from all the others. If you're a widely experienced GM, you've probably seen other Wild Magic Surge tables. The Player's Handbook has one, there's hundreds out there on the internet, but what sets mine apart from all the others is that you can customize this list and organize it better than any other list that you've ever seen, because I have them organized into positive, negative, neutrals, mild, moderate, extremes, the target, and it gives you the ability to customize it based on your own filters that you can create, which I'm going to show you how to do now. So as with all of my generators, there is a reference tab. If you click on the reference tab, you can see everything that's happening behind the scenes, the engine that makes the machine run here. And if you were to scroll down, you would see all of the surges. And again, we've got 645 of them. They all are listed in whether they're neutral, positive, negative. And then there's a fourth option that's omit. I'll talk about that in a second. And then each one, of course, has its own intensity, mild, moderate, or extreme, and the target. So the idea here is that if you wanted to add anything you wanted to in here, any additional surge idea that you had, you would just mark whether it's positive. And in your opinion, if you felt like it was more of a mild surge, moderate, or extreme, what you felt the target was best described as, and there you go. That will now be generated, or potentially can be generated over here in the results when there's the random draw from the 646 surges that are now in your table. And anytime you want to remove a surge, just come in and delete it. If you're deleting one that's in the middle of the list, you don't want to just do this. The problem with doing this is that it leaves a hole in the list, and holes in lists can sometimes be generated. And so what that would mean is you would have a result over here that's blank, and that's not going to be good for you. And so the better thing to do would be to just select this whole section of 5 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A through E, right click, delete cells, shift up. And then what that does is that deletes all 5 of those cells from the sheet, and it shifts everything up. And so now there's no hole, and it's not a big deal. But other than that, if you want to add anything, you could go down to infinity. As many items as you want in this list, you can add. I'll come back to the customs section here in a second. Look over here at the quick data. This just lets you know what you have currently in the generator. So currently there are 186 positives, 192 negatives, and 267 neutrals. Generally, you should try to keep the positives and negatives pretty close to each other, because if you have 700 negatives and only 150 positives, you're going to generate negatives a lot more often, assuming that you have all 3 of these ticked on over here in the settings. But if you keep positives and negatives more or less the same, then their odds are more or less equal. Don't change these numbers. This is just data representative of what's happening over here. So don't change these. Same thing with these. This is letting you know how many milds, moderates, and extremes are in the list. Again, don't change those. And then there's a 4th section here called omitted. And the idea with omitted is, let's say you didn't like one of the items in the surge list, but you don't want to straight up delete it. You want to keep it in the list for maybe another game that you play someday, but you don't want it active in this game. Well, then you can just come in here to the positive, negative, neutral list, and there's a 4th one where you click omit, lets you know that one is omitted, and now this one will never be generated, even though it's in the list. It's present in the list, but it will never be generated because you have chosen to omit it. Anytime you want to bring it back, though, just go positive, negative, or neutral, and it is now present back in the list. The refined data, the only function of this table is just so you can more accurately determine how many of what types of surges are present. So if you wanted to, you could ask, how many positive, extreme, self surges do I have? Positive, extreme, self. I have 29 of them. What about negative, extreme, self? I have 11. And so this is just a way for you to refine and clarify data so you know what's happening over here. It has nothing to do with the odds of things being generated. It's just about you knowing what's happening over here. So you could totally leave this alone, and you could uncheck or check all of these boxes, and it would not affect the functionality of the generator at all. It's just for you to know the data of what's happening. Okay, all of that said, I'll get to probably the most complicated and interesting part of this generator, and that's the custom filters. So these 3 can be edited. By the way, this little pop-up box came from this little black triangle that you see up in the top right corner of the custom filters. And any cell where you see a black triangle in the corner, if you hover your mouse over it, it will pop up some additional information. I would recommend you become familiar with all the black pop-ups if you're customizing things, just so you know what you should or should not be toying around with. So the custom filters, these 3 can be edited to whatever you want, allowing you to create your own filters. Editing them here on this tab will require you to adjust the drop-down markers in the Ref tab of column E. So we're not on the Ref tab. The Ref tab is here. Hence why it says Ref down here at the bottom. This is the Ref tab. And so if you edit anything here, so it says potions, custom, you can rewrite these. So when you do come in here and you want to change one of these, if number 2 you made God Rays, the options available in these cells come from what's in these 3. So with that in mind, this is how you can create your own custom filters. So my wife and I went through and we selected all the surges that we thought were appropriate for a crazy wild magic potion type effect. But of course you can delete all of these. All you'd have to do is come through, select them all, and press delete, and they'd be clear. But if you wanted to do your God Rays, again, over here, I noticed the typo, whatever. Then all you'd have to do is just come through and select God Rays, and if you wanted to overwrite one of the potions to say God Rays, then you're good. So that is how you use the custom filters. And notice that if you change the name of the filter here in the main settings, it automatically changes it over here. So at the risk of being repetitive, I'll just sum it up again by saying the custom filters section allows you to create your own filters for generating the particular types of surges you might want to have happen. Just a couple more things. This little gray cell up here, don't worry about it. You can totally ignore it. It's a function that helps the thing work, so don't bother with it. And then the last thing is you do have these little green stacks, these little green up triangles. These are for filtering this table for your viewing. Changing these or toying around with these does not affect the functionality of the actual generator. So for example, if you wanted to look at all 645 surges that I have here and see how many of them are moderate, and you only want to see the moderate intensity surges and you don't want to have to scroll down through all the milds and the extremes, then you just click on the little green triangle and it opens up a bunch of filtering options, and then you have these 4. And right now, because there's a check mark next to these 4, all of them are being visible. But if you only wanted to see moderate, you just click these 3 to uncheck them so that moderate is the only one that is checked. You press OK, and now you only see the moderate surges. But if you look over at the columns, you'll see we go from 7 to 9 to 10 to 11 to 18 to 20. You'll notice that we haven't deleted anything. These columns tell us that. The fact that they are jumping numerically lets us know that row number 38 is there. It's just being hidden. We're not seeing it. So if you wanted to only see moderate positives, well then now you just click on genre, turn off neutral and negative, press OK, and now the list only contains positive moderates. And lastly, of course, if you wanted to only be self, then you just turn off those, and now you see only positive, moderate, self surges. And so this is, again, not going to affect the functionality of the surge table itself. It's just for your ease of viewing it moving forward. Resetting these filters back is really easy. You just click on the target and you just click select all, press OK, select all, press OK, select all, press OK. And now you're back to the full list as vanilla. And that's it. That's the end of the Wild Magic Surge generator. You can see how, yeah, it's a Wild Magic Surge like many other tables, but what this generator does for you more than any other table you've ever used or seen is it allows you to filter the results based on genre, intensity, target, and your own custom filters. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, I have dozens of other generators, so if this looked interesting to you, please go check them out there as well. You can download this one or any of my other ones from buymeacoffee.com. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment down below if you have any questions or concerns, and happy gaming!